My hopes for Bushside Rangers were high, to say the least. Now, I admit, maybe they were a little too high, but despite how almost original this game seems, and its undoubtedly good graphics, it's definitely not exactly what I was hoping for. First, a brief rundown. Chances are you haven't heard of this game. It's got a pretty small following, which is a shame considering how it definitely stands out among the typical Mascot Horror games you see everywhere. I mean, this definitely isn't just another poppy playtime ripoff like Muzzy or Baki. It's got something that many Mascot Horror games like that lack nowadays. Passion. With a development team of more or less one person, this game is astonishing. My video isn't to just bash on it. These are just my true and honest thoughts from when I was playing it and looking back on it. But without further ado, I say we hop into the world that is Bushside Rangers, Chapter 1.
The Bushside Rangers Nature Park. When there's a spark, come down and you will live the dream. They're so excited and want to meet you. Bushside Rangers, they're such a silly team.
When I say first things first, I mean it, because right when you open this game up, you get what might be one of my personal favorite video game OSTs ever. Spectacles from Afar is the main menu song from Bushside Rangers, and it sets the stage perfectly. This is also the first time we get to hear this. This melody can be heard in almost every song on this OST, and it's done perfectly. And if you didn't hear it just then, trust me, you'll hear it later. The game opens to us standing outside of the Bushside Rangers park. As we find our way in, we can figure out that our character has some sort of emotional attachment to the park from her childhood.
I don't know about this anymore. You need to be strong, Farah. Okay. How do I even get past the entrance?
This is mostly implied by the game's opening music of this section, titled Welcome Home, which is also the next song to have this hidden melody. After switching a lever, we open the doors to an area with what seems to be some sort of help or assistance building in the middle. Upon entering the building, you're tasked with finding 3 fuses. Once you insert these fuses into the fuse box and pull the lever, you gain access to the first major area of the game. But before that, it's time for the first major criticism and symptom of your average Mascot Horror game. Finding these 3 fuses is unfortunately a direct reflection of the start of Garnet Ban Ban, where you have to find 3 batteries to get the drone. The only real difference in Bushside Rangers being you won't get your drone, or signature gimmick item that most every modern Mascot Horror game has. It's the item that allows progression through puzzles, doors, or locks in pretty unique ways. In Puppy Playtime, it's the grab pack. In Ban Ban, it's your drone. And you could even say that in FNAF, it's your Faz Wrench. When it comes to Bushside Rangers, however, the only difference made is that you have to wait a little longer to get this gimmick item. After inserting the fuses and opening the doors to Simon's Steampunk Skytram, you find the tram in a rather rundown state. When you enter the control room, you're tasked with finding a power cell. After backtracking to find this power cell, you insert it and power the tram up. Employee rules in tram stations. If there is a power outage, stop what you're doing immediately. Don't let any customers enter the premises. Only use company heaters when absolutely necessary. Do not make wait. Once inside the tram, you die and see the light of the after. Never mind. During the tram ride, Simon gives a lengthy audio tour of his section of the park.
Yeah, there are lots of things you can do, like play the arcade machines we have around. And then on the opposite side, we have our first work in progress, Mechanical Ranger arm by yours truly.
Suddenly, the tram passes over a broken portion of the rail, forcing it to stay in a small area of the track and delivering us to what seems to be a small staff building. This building, and many other environments down the road, just scream FNAF security breach. We are introduced to our gimmick tool through a poster in this building, and after following the tracks backwards, we hop over the broken portion and find a large machine holding our Ranger radio. After turning on the generator to lower the arm, we get a nice introduction to the radio from Laurel.
Laurel, one of our new recruits for the Bushside Rangers Nature Park! Yay! Being that you're new, us Safari Rangers want to give you a gift! Introducing the Ranger!
Then we get our first encounter, as well as some of the last bits of praise I'll unfortunately have for the game, besides its music. This is when things get messy.
What happened?
Little child.
Simon?
Oh, little child.
This initial introduction is ruined pretty quickly by an absurdly long piece of dialogue from Simon.
10, 9,
Oh god,
8, 7, 6, 5,
what do I
4,
do?
After this encounter, you're tasked with powering conduits around the area with your ranger radio. The thing is, the recording you're watching right now isn't part of the same playthrough you've been watching. I was lucky enough to receive this game early, but of course that meant that there were a few bugs left to fix up. In my initial playthrough, the following portion was super easy and Simon didn't actually spawn on the map, but when recording new footage for this, I wasn't as lucky. The AI pathing in Bush Rangers is bad. In this part of the game, Simon stays in one part of the map the entire time. Unfortunately, the part of the map that he's staying in is where you need to go, and he's too close to that area for you to ever get a chance to actually use the conduit there. Speaking of the conduits, their mechanic makes very little sense. This mechanic is best described as a mixture of Ruin's Phase Wrench and Child Node system. Find 3 conduits, use your ranger radio to solve them, and escape. Numbers will slide down into a box in the middle of the screen, and you must press the corresponding number on your ranger radio. Fail to do so, and you're punished by having to just sit here longer. I believe the idea is that you need to be quick to avoid enemy walking over to your area, but as you'll see, this ends up being a non-issue for most of the game. Once you power all 3 conduits, you're tasked with making it all the way back to the staff building by the tram, but on your way,
There you are!
Get away from me!
Simon starts chasing you in one of the most confusing chase sequences ever. I'm still not sure what the developer wanted the player to do here, but from what I've heard from other creators, you might be meant to hide in a trash can away from him to leave, but for me, I couldn't even get into the trash bin. I'm also not sure if this was only me, but all of the jump scares were insanely laggy. What I ended up doing was just running to the staff building, which worked out pretty well, especially since Simon got stuck on the pallets immediately. Once you make it into the building and power up the tram again, Simon disappears and you hop into the tram. One lengthy ride later, you crash yet again into the second half of the game.
My head. Where am I? The gift shop? Well, at least I'm away from Simon.
Yeah, I doubt that. Welcome to the gift shop, a place consisting of exactly 4 million plushies and 1 action figure. This section's enemy is Chester, a chef monkey. This is the most conflicting part of the game. As much as I want to love this part, it's not exactly the best game experience I've ever had. Chester runs along the ceiling of the map. His pathing also suffers from the same issues Simon's had, but worse. He tended to hang out in one very small portion of the map. This basically made this part of the game a waiting game. If you step on a plushie, he's lured to you, but this mechanic ends up being rather negligible, so all you do is hide, just hoping that his pathing would eventually work in your favor. This section also introduces a new mechanic, the intercom, where you can lure him to a different part of the map. Now, as much as I want to talk about how hard this section was, it wasn't, because, well, just watch for yourself. Chester just failed to spawn in upon seeing me. Now, while I could have restarted the section to make it fair, I was already sick of this part of the game, so I finished the last few conduits and left the gift shop, skipping about 15 minutes of just waiting around. After another conduit, we got our obligatory chase scene with Chester, which managed to be 10 times more confusing and less intuitive than Simon's. But that's not to say that the music isn't absolutely banging. At the end of this hall, we come across a door, but when we try and open it, we're told it needs a good banging. The only issue is that the player is left with absolutely no clue on how to actually do this. Finally, after 5 or 6 attempts, I finally figured out that you have to physically run into the door multiple times. I think the player experience would have been a bit better here if Chester was further away, letting the player figure out the mechanic, and then shortening the amount of time the player has when the mechanic appears again. Only issue is that this door smashing mechanic never comes back. Also, at one point, I managed to skip an entire cutscene trigger by jumping over some rubble, which was kind of funny. Yeah, this is really... oh, okay, I got over. Oh, okay, I see. I was definitely not supposed to do that. If you do this part correctly, you get a rather silly cutscene of Simon, and then close a gate on him not much longer. But before he can make an escape...
You will never leave us, Vera!
Go with me!
Vera, I will not let that slide!
This is the biggest lore drop we get this chapter. We can tell that these creatures have some sort of emotional connection to our character, Vera, but at this point there's no real indication of why. Finally, we reach our last conduit of the chapter, and after we make it through the door and lock Chester out, we make our way through a vent into Chester's Cafe. When it comes to solo projects like this, flaws are expected. The game's main developer, Daniela Garner, did a fantastic job. The environments and the lighting in this game are magnificent, and the character concepts are incredible. While the gameplay leaves much to be desired, with some minor tweaks to the difficulty, the game would also be pretty replayable. I, personally, will be giving it a solid 7 out of 10, with the positives being its soundtrack, graphics, pacing, and gameplay concepts, and the negatives being its difficulty, enemy AI, and the repetitive tasks. I was very brief in this video, so please go check out the game for yourself. I know for sure that any bugs will be taken care of immediately. Just over the past few days I've had the game, large updates have been happening every day. And on top of that, it's free. Thank you so much, Daniela G, for giving me early access, and I can't wait for what awaits us in Chapter 2. Also, I'm hosting a charity stream on Thursday, March 27th of 2025. It's going to be big. I'm giving away a Josh Hutcherson signed Funko Pop, and a bunch of mystery minis for FNAF, because, you know. So thank you so much for watching. Please tune into that. It is scheduled right now. So hit notify on that stream, and I hope to see you there.